No, this is not a bad case of deja vu. No, you are not like Rocky Erickson in that you have always been here before. This is not last week. This is not June 19th. It is indeed, as I mumble these words and obfuscate the lens, it is June 26th. It is Wednesday at 7 p.m. But I know for a fact something I did not know last week, and that this guy right here is Bravestarr. Bravestarr. And the only reason I know why this guy is Bravestarr is because of you, the discerning, knowledgeable viewer of Tent Talks Tunes, gave me the clue, dropped the knowledge, put the information in my head, and relieved me of the terrible burden of not knowing who this very short-lived cartoon character was. I've had this bank now for any number of years. I bought this bank at a thrift shop long time ago because it just looked interesting. You know, the facial features and the hat and everything were very distinct, very distinctive. It was very clearly a character of some sort, and he looked quite unusual. Could never figure out who the dude was. I did a reverse Google image search, and the image search checked out something like 68 point something billion images and could not find a match. But 30 seconds on Tent Talks Tunes, and John Bridges from Wilmington, North Carolina first, and then Callie Hellstrom from California both chimed in and said, yes, this is Bravestarr from, as described by John Bridges, a terrible cartoon but a great merchandising line. I'll take your word for it, John. Thank you for the information. Thank you, Callie, for the information. I heist my jug of Danbury Tap to you. Good day, Mike Lesser. Thanks for tuning in. Hello, Alan. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to everybody else who just sent a thumbs up or a heart or a whatever sort of emoji. Y'all remember when they were called emoticons? Is anybody here that old? Does anybody's memory stretch back that far when they were called emoticons? I remember. An old dog can remember old tricks. I guess emoticon was not as marketable a word as emoji. So anyway, Alan Versapella says he's loving the shirt. There is a story behind this shirt. You know, why on earth would I be wearing a shirt of my own recording artist, TPOS recording artist Charles Manson, one of the best-selling artists on my label? You know, I'm fairly shameless. I've been known to wear my band's shirt. People have seen me in many an anti-scene shirt. I've been spotted in Ultra Bunny shirts. And I will wear a shirt of my recording artist, but there's a specific reason that I have this shirt. And that is, a couple years back, I was summoned for jury duty. And I really did not want to do jury duty. I just have a thing about waking up before noon. And if you do jury duty, they want you to be there at 8 in the morning. Totally contrary to my chosen lifestyle. Absolutely not the way I've decided to live my life. And that is notwithstanding any opinions I have of the American legal or judicial system. I just did not want to have to wake up at 6:30 in the morning in order to be at the Danbury Courthouse at 8. And then sit around all day doing nothing. I'm also very bad at sitting around doing nothing. It's not my style. So I thought, well, all right. I postponed it once, then I postponed it again. And I was going to postpone it a third time, but they wouldn't let me postpone it a third time. And the date assigned was exactly 2 days before I was supposed to report for some real important duty in Charlotte, North Carolina, playing gigs with Anti-Scene. And there's no way I was going to miss that. So I thought, well, okay. The little pamphlet they sent me about jury duty and what to expect and how to behave said that I should dress appropriately. So how does one dress appropriately if one wishes not to serve on the jury? Well, one gets a shirt appropriate to serve that end, and one places it under a respectable-looking button-down shirt and goes to court and waits around and waits around and waits around, and sure enough, I got called. A lot of times, if you guys have done jury duty, you know that sometimes they will actually have the jury sitting in the selection room, and you will actually go so far as to sit through the informational film they show you, and the case will be called off at the last minute because the lawyers have reached a settlement or an agreement, and they'd rather not go to jury trial. It can get that close. No such luck in this case. I actually went to the jury pool room, sat there and watched the little film, and then the judge came out and gave his little pep talk, and then the lawyers came out, and I was like, okay, we're on. We're on. At the appropriate moment, I'm going to remove this button-down shirt that's got them fooled, and they're going to see where my allegiances really lie. And luckily, it didn't even get to that. One of the first questions from the lawyer's mouth was, will anybody be facing a hardship by serving on this jury? My hand just automatically shot straight up. And I was called from the pool to sit down with the lawyer and, explain why being on the jury was such a hardship for me. I didn't say anything about waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning. I didn't say anything about my opinions, although I certainly would have if I had to. I didn't even have to take off my respectable-looking button-down shirt. I simply told them I'm a traveling rock and roller. I play decadent punk rock, and I have to be in Charlotte, North Carolina in 2 days. And that was it. That was good enough. And it was really cool because the name Anti-Scene was mentioned in a Danbury, Connecticut courthouse, and there were no repercussions. So, no jury duty, still got the shirt. I figure, hey, why not sport it for all of you, my viewers, with excellent senses of humor on Tent Talks Tunes. Gary Forney is tuned in. He says he dyed his hair green to get out. That's pretty good. Gary Forney, if I had enough hair to dye green, I would probably do that myself. Although in my case, probably blue. I was permanently damaged by seeing the Plasmatics live on Fridays, the TV show in 1980, and the sight of Richie Stotts with his tutu and his left-handed flying V guitar and that blue mohawk. I gotta tell you, that was some pretty heady stuff in 1980 when you're in 11th grade. And no one had ever really seen a mohawk, let alone on national TV, let alone a blue one. I cannot underestimate the heaviness and the importance of that. So for the longest time, I did want a blue mohawk. I seriously coveted a blue mohawk, but I was in the 11th grade. Parents wouldn't let me. Who only knows what the odds would have been of escaping unscathed through a day of school in Hialeah, Florida. We can only guess. Probably for the better I didn't do it. But still, the idea of a blue mohawk, it's lodged in my subconscious and it's very appealing. Anyway, we've got our whistle whetted here. Let's take a quick spin through the bulletin board. And then we're going to see if you guys, the Tent Talks Tunes hive mind, can help me solve this long-standing media. Your performance with Mr. Bravestarr here has really made a brave star out of me. I'm really hoping you guys can help me solve this mystery, because it's been bugging me for even longer than Bravestarr has. And that's a long time. All right, I learned a long time ago, don't even try to go chronologically, just go in order from my right to my left, and tell you about the exciting events that are coming up in the life of me, Malcolm Tent, that can, be a part of your exciting lives, to make your lives even more exciting than they are already. We got events. These are all public events. These are things you can go to and participate in. You can be educated, you can be entertained, you can be disgusted, you can be enlightened, you can be benighted, whatever. The choice is up to you. We simply open the doors and wait for y'all to come in. Well, actually, the first event that my hand is drawn to is the next event on my calendar, which is this Friday. In 48 hours-ish, I, Lord willing and the creeks don't rise, will be at Red Scroll Records in Wallingford, Connecticut, opening up for the great Brute Force. Now, I got a lot of information about Brute Force wrong last week when I was talking about this show. I was exhorting everybody to go look up his awesome song, Sandwich of Love. Well, that wasn't the name of the song. The song is To Sit on a Sandwich. I was conflating that with his other great song, The Tapeworm of Love. And I guess the other wrong title would have been To Sit on a Tapeworm. Hopefully none of you guys have ever done that in your life. I'm sure it's quite unsavory. I've seen pictures and it ain't pretty. To sit on a sandwich. Tapeworm of Love. The King of Pho. And so many more. Not to mention lots and lots and lots of probably world-famous, well-known, semi-well-known top 40 radio hits all throughout the 50s and 60s into the 70s, written for other artists. He was George Harrison's personal pick to be on Apple Records. His album Confections of Love is one of my all-time favorites. And Brute Force, he's playing at Red Scroll Records in Wallingford. It's a $10 show. It's all ages. I'm going to warm things up for him, and I am looking forward to it hardcore, big time. Hopefully you will be there, because you need what Brute Force has got, and you already know you need what I got. The next day, the Punk Rock Flea Sideshow at the Brass City Mill in Waterbury. It is indeed a sideshow, a freak show, put on by the great Lost Souls Collective. There will be a room full of vendors, including moi. I will have my usual assortment of dynamite, high-quality, hand-picked records, tapes, and CDs, TPOS releases, including by Gary Forney, thank you very much, and whatever else is going on with the sideshow. It goes on from noon until what time? I can hardly read that. Noon until 8 p.m., Saturday, June 29th, Brass Mill Mall, Waterbury. Come on, you don't want to miss it. You know you don't want to miss it. You don't dare miss it. What else is going on? Well, nothing over there. Well, we'll look way forward into the future. November 23rd, the next Danbury Record and CD Expo. That's about 5 months away, so I'm not going to belabor the point, but let's just say it's Connecticut's longest-running record show. I co-promote it. Room full of dealers. If you're a record geek, freak, fanatic, and lover like I am, you will want to be there. All right, that's the calendar, the bulletin board. We'll do a very quick check of the mailbox, which ties into some really cool things I picked up recently. As you all know, last weekend was the Gala 28th anniversary celebration for Ground Zero in Spartanburg, California. Spartanburg, South Carolina. You can tell who didn't get a good night's sleep last night. But it was us, Anti-Scene that is, us, I Hate God, and J.D. Pincus doing his psychedelic banjo recital. Turnout was great. The crowd, as always, was awesome, high energy, good fun. It was kind of like a sweat box in there, but I'm a Florida boy, so yeah, let's sweat. To me, rock and roll means working up a good sweat and getting real juicy on that stage and drippy and messy. Ugh. Makes me feel like I'm actually working a little bit, and I like that. It was the debut on the marketplace of the I Hate God Anti-Scene split cassette. The people loved it. We sold quite a few of them. I Hate God had them on their merch table, and they sold quite a few of them. Yes, indeedy do, and I am very happy with the way this came out. Everybody was very happy with the way this came out. It's currently for sale on the Anti-Scene Big Cartel store. You should go over there and check it out. I will have it listed on my Discogs and my eBay very soon. probably after this weekend is done, because things are very hectic leading up to and including this weekend, as you've seen, with the Punk Rock Flea sideshow and the Brute Force gig. I got a lot going on. So I'm going to be listing that officially after this weekend. Herbert Jerome Gailey is tuned in. He drove all the way from Pittsburgh, PA. He says, great show. He got one from both bands. Yes, Mr. Gailey is a very smart collector. He knew that there were 2 variants. Each band had a different type of cassette shell. It was one of those accidental variants, but, you know, I Hate God preferred one style, so I made those for them. And I had a real brainwave about a style I wanted to do for us, so I made another style for us. If you're going to butter your toast, you got to butter it on both sides. So, Mr. Herbert Jerome Gailey, thank you for that. Always good to see you at the shows, man. By the way, how long was the drive this time? I'm going to guess 9 hours. Please post the stats, because the people want to know how long and far you had to drive. A lot of people drive long distances to come see Anti-Scene. They fly long distances to come see Anti-Scene, and we, as a band, are extremely grateful and appreciative for that. So I will definitely hoist my jug of Danbury Tap to you and all travelers who come to see us and enable us to rock and roll. And the word is 8. 8 hours. Very respectable, sir. So, of course, while I was down there, you know, it was kind of a hit-and-run trip. I didn't hit any record stores or anything like that, but I did have a kind of a side bet going on with Mr. Jeff Clayton, lead singer of Anti-Scene, who, by the way, does his own radio show. It's not a radio show. It's a live streaming internet show called Break On Through. He is on a new time slot now, 7 p.m. Tuesday. If you like Tent Talks tunes, the odds are very good that you will like Break On Through. He does a lot of similar stuff to what I do. A music nerd, culture geek, talking about music and culture. And he's of course got his own slant on things. I've got my own slant on things. So it's the same deal, man. If you want to get a slice of well-buttered toast, you got to watch them both. Break On Through, Tuesdays, 7 p.m., live on the Anti-Scene Facebook page. And let's see, I think you guys know what's about to happen. You hear that? If you didn't hear it, you're going to see it. You all know what this is. You know what this is. You know what's about to happen right here, right now. The camera hog himself. He looks like a cat, but he is a hog. It is Harry. Say hi to the people, Harry. Show him your fang. Show him that one good fang of yours. Is it there? Can you see it? Where's that fang? Yep, there it is. Oh, no, maybe it isn't. Yeah, there it is. The Fang. I should change his name to Fang. I think that would be a far more accurate name. The Fang. The one-eared wonder. The yellow-eyed demon. Harry the cat. Making his obligatory appearance here on Tent Talks Tunes. I think he knows you guys expect him to show up. Because normally, you know, he's got a few spots out there in the living room, and he's got one in the kitchen, and he's got one on his catio outside. And he just, you know, sleeps. But when he hears me sitting here in my office, in front of the backdrop, going blah 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 nonstop for an hour, I think he knows. He can recognize the verbal cues. He doesn't speak English. He speaks no English whatsoever. He doesn't speak any human language at all, as a matter of fact. He has no idea what I'm saying, and if he did, he wouldn't care, because he's a cat. But he knows, somewhere in his little fabulous, furry, ferocious, felicitous, yet so friendly, fuzzy, furry, feline brain, that Tent Talks Tunes is happening, and he makes his appearance. So welcome aboard, Harry. Yay, Harry. Wesley Dixon says he loves Harry. We all love Harry. I'll drink a toast to Harry, all right? Just please don't put that butt in my face. Thank you very much. Of course, now it's going to be hard to move because he's parked on my lap. I have to reach over here to grab some of the AV materials. Let's talk about Jeff Clayton. Oh, there he goes. He'll be back. Jeff Clayton, my boss in Anti-Scene, was liberating himself of some books. And you wouldn't know, you know, thinking, you look at these guys. Look at this Anti-Scene. Look at that bunch of brutes. That bunch of heel, bad guy wrestling types. You know, a lot of people don't understand Anti-Scene's sense of humor. But if you understand professional wrestling from the 60s, 70s, and into the 80s, and you understand the bad guy mentality, I think you'll get it. You'll smell what Anti-Scene is cooking. Anyway, these guys don't look literate, but we're all pretty literate. Our guitar player, Walt Wheat, especially, man, that guy has got a book problem. Jeff Clayton has got a somewhat less book problem, but still a problem. I got a huge book problem. I'm in the middle of moving right now, right? I'm moving. I'm trying to pack up my household and, you know, get it into a truck or a van or something so we can schlep it down to North Carolina and I can begin my new life down there. So what do? I get more books because Jeff Clayton had posted that he was divesting himself of some books. I said, well, I'm a dumbass. I'll grab some more books. And you see Walt Wheat, he's there. Walt's watching. Walt says, take my books, please. Walt was posting a little bit about how he had to get rid of his books. Walt, if you want to use 10 Talk Tunes as a forum for relieving yourself of the terrible burden of books, please feel free. Let the people know. We're all somewhat literate here. Chrissy Walker, a.k.a. Pissy Chrissy, is tuned in. She says, Walt Whitman Wheat needs to author a book for the people to consume. Boy, talk about a vicious circle. Oh my God. It's the habit that feeds itself. It's kind of like why I put out records, you know, when you think about it. Chrissy's actually got a very good point. I've got this thing about collecting records. So what do? I release records. I release records by other artists. I release records by myself. It makes the problem worse. Or better, if the case may be. It depends on your POV, your point of view. Bruiser Braswell's in the house. Hello, Mondo, a.k.a. Bruiser, a.k.a. Braswell. Our main merch man and road dog who manned the merch table at the last show we played and did a bang-up job of it. If you see him standing behind a tip jar, you need to put some dollars in that tip jar because he is one of the hardest working men in showbiz. I won't say he is the, because we already know who that is, but he definitely ranks up there. And he works hard for the money. So hard for the money. He works hard for the money, so you better treat him right. Yeah! Books. Nothing to Lose. The story of the early kiss. This one's been on my want list for quite a while, and now it's not on my want list. Now it's on my have list. And it's on my list of more stuff to schlep down to North Carolina. This book alone probably weighs about 3 pounds. So that's 3 extra pounds of bulk to put in a box and cart down to North Carolina. I never said I was the smartest guy in the room. That was always my teachers. I never made that claim. Speaking of Kiss, you got the man who blazed the path, Mr. Alice Cooper. I read this book once. It's a real good book. Enjoyed it quite a bit. It was a loaner from somebody, but now I have it. I own it. It's mine. We'll reread it at some point. I saw Jeff post this one, and my ears and eyes immediately turned on their love light. A book called There Was a Time, Rock and Roll in the 1960s in Charlotte and North Carolina. Man, I am a huge fan of obscure regional rock and roll from the 60s and 70s. And that, of course, bleeds into the regional hardcore scenes of the 80s and up to the present day. But it all began way back when, and I'll read and research pretty much anything about any regional scene. And, you know, considering that I'm moving to North Carolina and Anti-Scene is from Charlotte, this one squared my interest. It didn't just double my interest, it squared it, might have even cubed it. So I'm going to be checking this out at length and no doubt learning about lots and lots of bands that I need to know more about. It happens all the time. I learn about these bands, need them, want them, gotta have them, end up searching out their records, and in some cases, releasing their records. There's that vicious circle all over again. All over again. It never stops. I'll tell you about one I'm working on right now. This one's moving very slowly, but I actually have the copy right here. Very close at hand. Oh, actually, maybe I filed it away already. You guys get to look at my the extreme back of my head and my ear, but I think it's all for nothing, because I had this really cool AV I was going to show you. Never mind, I filed it away. Let's just forget the whole thing happened. Let's just pretend I never said anything about reissuing really cool South Florida garage punk records from the 1960s. I didn't say anything. I said nothing about Mark Markham and the Jesters. I said nothing about Mark Markham being the elder cousin of the great Charlie Pickett from South Florida. Didn't say a word about what a double A-side killer 45 his Marlboro Country record is, and how the wheels are slowly turning towards a reissue of that on TPOS. Am I excited about it? I'm excited about it. In another startling parallel, Jeff Clayton does the same thing with his Long-Haired Weirdo record label. And, you know, you're going to talk about this great book about regional rock of the 60s. You got to talk about great regional rock of the 70s and a 45 that Jeff reissued by the great Scott Savage. Scott Savage was very active in the Charlotte music scene in the 60s. I don't know about the 60s, but definitely the 70s and the 80s. Put out one full-length album in this extremely rare 45, reissued on the Long-Haired Weirdo label. If you're a fan of regional, obscure, unknown, specifically North Carolina rock, I would say check this record. That's a great record. Scott Savage had his foundation firmly in the Doors. Look at that color of vinyl, too. The Doors were definitely an inspiration of his, but he put his own spin on it and took that sound into its own place. And this is a fine record. And you can get that on the Anti-Scene Big Cartel store as well. Or from me if you want. I got copies too. So check it out. Obscure, rare, and wonderful. And that all ties into this next book here, because this book, I am told, was actually property of Scott Savage himself. And this is a book that I owned when I was a kid. Yes, Moe Howard and the Three Stooges, the autobiography of Moe Howard of the Three Stooges. I just about wore this book out when I was a kid. And when I made my first momentous move from Florida to Connecticut, and I had to sell off a lot of possessions in order to make the move, this book went. And that was in 1986, and I have not had a copy of this book since 1986. And now, from Scott Savage via Jeff Clayton, I am once again the proud owner of the Moe Howard autobiography. And this makes me so happy you don't even know. I'm going to make a bold statement right now. If there is such a thing as a competition between the Three Stooges and the Marx Brothers, if there is, I'm not saying there is, but if there is, the ranking is very clear. Three Stooges rule hard over any and every comedy team or comedian who have ever come down the pike. They were the best. They were the funniest. They did it longer and consistently better than anybody else. And that's all there is to it. Three Stooges, kids. Three Stooges. Talking about, if you want to understand the humor of certain people, certain musicians, yes. Study yourself some Three Stooges. I was actually talking about the Three Stooges to Jeff Clayton on one of our long van rides recently, and we were talking about art that we both love. And I let drop a little factoid, which I will share with you people right now. I am so into the Three Stooges, and I have watched every one of their movies so much that I will actually watch their movies frame by frame to look at the backgrounds, to look at the editing, to see how the stunts were executed. It's fascinating stuff. Fascinating. And these guys never, ever, ever got the credit they deserved. I think because they were always in vaudeville. The Marx Brothers made it to Broadway and had, you know, big Hollywood studio support, full-length feature movies. The Stooges were never on Broadway. They never had full-length feature pictures until very, very, very late in their career. And even those were kind of low-budget affairs. So they never got the respect that the Marx Brothers did. But I think pound for pound, their humor has aged better, it has worn better, and it is far more consistently funny than the Marx Brothers. And I like the Marx Brothers. Who doesn't like the Marx Brothers? Dude, Marx Brothers are great. Three Stooges are better. That's all there is to it. Enough said. See, we got some people here. Mike Lesser is in agreement with that. Nick Stone says he has every single episode of the Three Stooges. Greg Crawford wants to know, what's my opinion on Joe? Well, let me tell you, Greg Crawford, depends on whether you're talking about Joe Besser or Joe Dorita. Which Joe do you mean, Greg? I'll tell you about both of them. How's that? My opinions of both Joes in the Three Stooges. I know Pissy Chrissy is watching, and this is about where she's going to start to doze off. But sorry, guys, the question was asked. My opinion of Joe Besser, who was in the team from 1957 to maybe early 1959. He was in the very last of the short subject comedies they did, and he was in the fewest. And at that time, the whole series was winding down, and Columbia Pictures was not interested in the Three Stooges anymore. They were getting ready to pull the plug. So Joe Besser never really had a chance to shine with the Three Stooges. By the time he came on board, the budgets were getting smaller and smaller, like literally from one film to the next. The budgets were getting smaller. The resources were shrinking. The writing talent was looking for greener pastures. So there are definitely some gems in the Joe Besser Three Stooges film catalog. A lot of them really suffer from that terrible production and bad writing, but that's not through any fault of his or the other Three Stooges. That's the fault of the producers, of Columbia Pictures, of the corporation, of the money men, which is almost always the case. You know, the Stooges probably had some life left in them, but Columbia just wasn't interested. So Joe Besser ended up being the guy who was sort of dangling on the end of the rope at the very end of it. So, you know, that wasn't the best period they ever had, but it could have been a good period if anybody in the front office was interested. That's my opinion of Joe Besser. My opinion of Joe Dorita, a.k.a. Curly Joe, is not a very high opinion. I don't think he was the right guy for the team. And it's kind of a similar deal. Like, by the time he joined the Three Stooges and they made those final few feature-length movies, like, they were old men. Like, Moe and Larry especially, they were old. They were in their, I believe, in their 60s at least by then. They were old guys, and they had run out of steam. And, you know, Moe Howard was the kind of guy, he literally kept working until the day he died. Or at least kept wanting to work until the day he died. I think I'm a workaholic. I had nothing on Moe Howard. Moe Howard lived for the Three Stooges. And they were probably digging the hole for his grave, and he was thinking of new routines and new possibilities for films and stuff like that. Larry never really cared that much. He just wanted the paycheck. And Moe actually held him in a lot of contempt for that. So you got the two old guys who just weren't capable of the slapstick anymore. And now they're working in full-length feature films for the first time. And it's kind of hard at that stage of the game once again, on low budgets and low production values to sustain Three Stooges kind of humor through that. And plus, Joe DeRita, his sense of humor, his sense of comedy was very low-key. It was very reserved. And even though Moe and Larry were kind of running out of steam by then, he still just did not fit. He didn't fit. He was the worst fit for the Three Stooges, I think. So, and that's not to detract from his abilities as a comedian or a comic or anything, but he just wasn't the right guy for the Three Stooges. He just happened to be the right guy in the right place at the right time, who was able to get the job. He looked kind of like Curly, the original Curly with the shaved head and being heavy set. And, you know, even the way Moe Howard describes it, those were his main qualifications. He just kind of looks the part. So there you go. And I'm really going to make a huge statement right now. Walt Wheat wants to know, what's my opinion of Joe Mama Besser of Spinal Tap? Well, Erica says right there, explosive playing, yes. I thought that was maybe the best subtle joke that maybe nobody got in the whole movie. That was good. Man, I got to watch Spinal Tap again. How many people out there, it's not a question of how many of you guys have ever seen Spinal Tap, it's how often have you seen Spinal Tap? How many times have you watched Spinal Tap? Spinal Tap is one of those very few movies that I have not only seen, but have seen a number of times and would happily sit down and watch it again if the situation presented itself. Spinal Tap forever. Tap rules, okay? Not just Danbury Tap, not just tapping on the jug. Spinal Tap. Oh man, you guys are making me jocular. Nick Stone says they're working on a sequel. Normally I would be very suspicious of something like that. I'm not exactly sure if I approve, but, you know, we'll see. We'll see. We shall see. My gosh, I've been here for 41 minutes and I still haven't gotten to the mail, but guess what's in the mail? From my old pal Cruz, who knew me in high school. Oh my God. Old Cruz knows where one or two skeletons are buried. She sent me a book in the mail to my address, Malcolm Tent, P.O. Box 3626, Newtown, Connecticut, 06470. Like I need more stuff, here I am soliciting more stuff. And part of it is because I just love trading and sending things back. Cruz, I don't know if you're watching, and I know you don't expect me to send anything back, but I'm going to send something back to you. I've got a couple of things for you that I'm going to send just in appreciation for you sending me this book. So I'm going to bust out the 1 1/4 mile scissors here. Working our way towards 1.5, one envelope at a time. Let's see, I got to open this one carefully. I don't want to risk damaging the contents. Another book. Another book! But I already know what this is. This is really cool. This is a very cool book. And there it is. Research. From the classic Research book series on J.G. Ballard. I used to sell these at my store when I had Trash American Style. By the way, don't forget the Trash American Style Farewell to Connecticut pop-up store last weekend of July. I used to sell these, never kept one for myself. I don't know how the topic came up, but I did mention it. And she said, oh, I have that. I'll send it to you. And I was like, you know what? That is really nice. And on top of that, she did say something about... Yeah, how about that? Signed. Signed by J.G. Ballard. One of the great science fiction writers of all time. You know what? That is just so cool. Thank you, Cruz. I appreciate that very much. I'm going to tell you right now, this book will never have a price tag on it. It's never going anywhere except on my bookshelf. And that is that. And I don't know if I'm still live. The screen just went black. Let me refresh here. If you guys are watching this and I am still live, please accept my apologies. This is one of those technological glitches that makes life interesting. Looks like I'm still on. So I'll just say it again, just in case anybody missed it. This book right here will never have a price tag on it. I'm telling you right now, on the record, for all to witness, for all to see, for all to hear, this book will not be for sale. This is going on my bookshelf. Thank you very much. Thank you, Cruz. I appreciate it very, very much. And since I got a few minutes left, I might as well talk about the Trash American Style Farewell to Connecticut pop-up store. Because it is happening. It's happening. It's happening. Boy, is it happening. I have been working double overtime on going through the relentless pile of stuff that I've been accumulating technically for the last 38 years, specifically over the last 10 years when I moved into my lovely little cabin in the woods here. Let me explain. When I opened up Trash American Style, the brick and mortar store, you know, I had inventory. And that body of inventory has just like metamorphosed and metasized and changed and morphed continually since we opened up the front door of Trash American Style on November 29th, 1986. It's like that piece of inventory has changed one item at a time. Stuff's been sold, more stuff comes in, more stuff gets sold, other things come in to replace it. So even though I think it's safe to say there's not one single particle of merchandise from the original Trash American Style that's in the current inventory, that is what morphed into what I got now. And you've heard me talk about it so many times. I can't hardly drive past a thrift store. I have a very hard time passing a record store without going into it. It's pretty tough. It's pretty tough. Very difficult for me to do that. And if I go into a thrift shop or a record store, or if I'm, going to go into a flea market and I find something that I think is really cool, I'm going to buy it. I can't help it. If it's a couple of bucks and it's cool, I'm going to buy it. That's just the way it is, guys. I'm either going to keep it for myself or I'm going to sell it. It's what I do. It's my sweet sickness. So over the past 10 years, my ability to sell things has changed. It has mutated. When I first moved here 10 years ago, I was doing a regular circuit of record shows. I had a circuit of colleges in the area that I would sell at. And there were a lot of opportunities for pop-up stores. So it was always worth my while to acquire things besides just records. I could go to the colleges with books, or I could do a pop-up store with just, cool knickknacks and souvenirs and stuff like that. And, be able to sell them, have an outlet for them. But over the years, the college circuit dried up. Pop-up stores, opportunities to do so got further and fewer between. Plus, I started touring around a lot as a musician, primarily over the last 5 years with Anti-Scene. And so I'm just not around that much in order to sell stuff in person. And so I had all these books and souvenirs and knickknacks and gewgaws and, of course, records that I fully intended to sell, but no outlet for them. And of course, I still go to the thrift shops and the record stores and the flea markets, not as much as I used to, but, I still can't help it sometimes. And I still pick things up. I still buy them. Like, for example, last week when I was driving down to Spartanburg, South Carolina for the Ground Zero 20th anniversary show, I stayed at an Airbnb, woke up, and just next door, they were having a yard sale. Well, of course, I went to the yard sale next door. I wasn't just going to hop in my car and drive away from it. So what did I buy? I bought a pair of salt and pepper shakers. And anybody who knows me knows the significance of that. I bought a pair of salt and pepper shakers, a vintage Atari 2600 cartridge. I forget which game it was, but a game cartridge for an Atari 2600. And a couple of really silly, cheesy 1976 bicentennial first day of issue stamp commemorative medal sets. And if you were around in 1976, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They were $1 each. How could I not? How? Shakers. I really hope it's not. Once again, I really hope you guys will bear with me, because I'm just trying to see if I'm still going on live. My signal seems to be interrupting itself here. And it's really annoying. So anyway, I'm on. So, where was I? I bought the salt and pepper shakers. I bought the silly bicentennial first day covers with the medals in them. I bought the Atari 2600. And just took them straight down with me to North Carolina and put them in storage there. But in the meantime, I got all this stuff here in Connecticut that's going to be at the Popup store. And people have asked, what kind of stuff are you peddling, old man? Well, I got a crate full of things right here. I'm going to do a quick run through. Speaking of stamps, about some vintage 70s and 80s U.S. Postal Service souvenir sets. I got quite a few of these. Various exciting topics with stamps and books and stuff like that. United States Postal Service mint sets. This one from 1977. Doesn't want to come out of its envelope. Don't know why that is. Because it knows I'm on live TV and it's embarrassing. Here you go. I had this when I was a kid. 1977 commemorative stamp set. Souvenir folder. Mint condition stamps. I loved this stuff when I was a kid. And the good news is if nobody buys it, I get to keep it. What else have we got? We got magazines. Old issues of Relics. If you're a Grateful Dead head, you'll know Relics. Comes with a bonus CD. How about this? Ooh, saucy, original vintage Playboy magazines. Oh man, these are kind of like National Geographics. Everybody's parents, father, had their collection of Playboys stashed away somewhere. Well, I got a few of these from the 60s and 70s. I also have the very funny Harvard Lampoon Playboy satire issue, which is great. Speaking of flexies and stuff and CDs, how about the Sassy magazine with the REM flexi inside of it? How about great old issues of Flexi Pop magazine with the flexies? Finding these flexies is very easy, but finding them with the magazines is not so easy. I have a pretty fair number of these Flexi Pops. Here's an Elvis Costello tour program, 1985. That's in this crate full of stuff. What else is there? A really great Time Out magazine from 1978. British magazine with the Clash on the cover. Very cool. Chock full of great ads from the day. How about this? Vintage 1970s Radio Shack headphones. Still in the box. Still in the box, mofo. Look at the graphics on that. Love it. Love it. How about all you wrestling fans out there? Mondo Braswell, you see this? The Gordon Soley game of pro wrestling intact. I actually played this a couple of times. It's there, and it can be yours because the price is right. That's just one crate. One crate from the Trash American Style Farewell to Connecticut pop-up store. last weekend of July. July 26th, 27th, and 28th. Specific location to be announced. I will be making an event page for it soon, and you can read all about it then. You can book a plane, you can book a train, you can hop a bus, you can get in your car and drive. Just make sure you got plenty of backpack space, trunk space, carry-on space for all the awesome stuff that you're going to take back with you, because the less I have to carry around with me, the easier my move to North Carolina is, and the more I can convert into dollars, the more I will be able to bear the expenses of moving to North Carolina. So that's my big push, that's my big shill, and jeez, 5 minutes to go, and we still haven't talked about the media mystery, the lost media mystery. That's what the whole point of the damn show was the mystery of lost media. Oy vey. I'll tell you, you guys get me started. It's hard to stop. We went everywhere from Spinal Tap to the Three Stooges to, I don't even know, J.G. Ballard. And we still didn't talk about the mystery of the lost media. Okay, I'm going to do this real fast. Because I don't know if you heard that, but there's thunder rolling in. And that very well might affect my connection. So there's a record that I held in my hands. Held it in my hands. Saw it with my own two eyes. Didn't smell it because it wasn't too musty. But I held this record in my hands. Put it down. And have not seen, heard, nor detected any trace of it ever since. And I'm hoping you guys can help me out with this. You decoded the mystery of Bravestarr, so maybe you can decode the mystery of the mysterious Dead Boys double 7-inch EP. It was on Bump Records. It came out after Cheetah Chrome and Jeff Magnum left the band. On the front cover was a picture of Stiv Bators, Johnny Blitz, and Jimmy Zero with the two new guys, but all dressed up in like paisley and mod 60s clothes. And they were all posed there smiling bright and wide for the camera. And I don't know who the other two guys were, but it definitely was not Cheetah Chrome and it was not Jeff Magnum. I don't remember what songs were on it. And I have not been able to find a trace of it anywhere. It's not on Discogs. It's not on Wikipedia. It's not on Bump Records website. And I tried doing a general search for it and got nowhere. Who knows what that record was? What was the Dead Boys double 7-inch single that came out on Bump after Cheetah Chrome and Jeff Magnum quit the band? Where they're not looking punk rock at all. They're looking paisley underground and fresh scrubbed and smiling. I can picture it. And I'm kicking myself for not buying it, because, you know, but at the time I was really snobbish about it. I was like, well, this isn't really the Dead Boys. And of course now, as you all know, I'm fascinated by that kind of stuff. I am fascinated by the lame duck, dare I say, bullshit version of a band that continues onward, and especially when they make records and continue to produce. I'm fascinated by that stuff. And there are bootlegs out there of live performances by that lineup of the band. I have a couple. And they definitely are not as ferocious and take no prisoners as the original Dead Boys. So what's up with that record? What was the Dead Boys double 7-inch EP on Bump that probably came out around 1980, I'm going to guess. If anybody knows, I would love for you to share that information with me. And if you can solve the mystery as quickly as y'all solved the Bravestarr mystery, I will be shocked and awed, because I have certainly not been able to do that. And since my stupid internet's still kind of frozen, I can't see if any comments are being placed, but I'll look at it after I sign off, which is going to be right now. I'm signing off. Thanks, guys, for listening to me rant, rave, rage, ramble, and rumble about all the things that I like to pontificate about. Thank you for the continued support of the almighty anti-scene. We appreciate it greatly, really greatly. And thanks for tuning in every single week to Tent Talks Tunes and let me do what I do. If all goes well, I will be back in about 167 hours. Even better with the name of that Dead Boys record. So until we meet again, this is Malcolm Tent saying so long from the Nutmeg State.